Welcome into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, and
that's it. Bueller.
And even further, Tyler, we're here for a good time, not a long time this morning.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it count.
We're gonna go fast. We're gonna go as hard as we can. We're gonna get this done very quickly. Thank y'all. Brackets. Let's get started.
Is your bracket okay?
I'm good.
You good? Okay.
Tyler, I'm good.
All right.
All propelled by the singular force that we all can use, and that's hate.
All right.
All propelled by hate. A lot of people around the country were astounded by the 5-12 matchup of McNeese versus Clemson.
Yeah.
Not I. I had that one picked. And I had it picked simply for two reasons. Both of them stem from the hate tree. One, obviously, Clemson.
Right.
Easy, right? Can't pick Clemson to win. Can't do that, even though I did pick them earlier this year in the college football playoffs.
Yep.
But more importantly, I picked it, McNeese, for my hatred of the NCAA.
Okay.
I am rooting for chaos. I want to see this lame duck coach make a run in this tournament with his lame duck players who will not be there next year.
Yep.
The coach is leaving. I am all for this story because I think I saw one of the tweets, maybe it was from Barstool or somebody, and it was like, how could you not be romantic about college basketball? And it showed Will Wade celebrating, and it was like, I don't know how romantic this is because this is either a great story or a truly dystopian NCAA story. I'm not sure where somebody would fall on this.
So it's very unique. And look, if the NC State stuff had not happened, I would have felt very confident picking McNeese when I felt at my bracket. But I thought, this is a distraction. No way they're going to be able to pull off this win, especially after Brad Brownell just got extended, by the way, when he was being rumored to go take the Indiana job. I'm like, this is all lining up for Clemson to win, right?
This is very true, Tyler. Also, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Brad Brownell with the classic denial of the Indiana job. Like, I'm very happy here at Clemson. Never said I'm not taking the Indiana job, but just
right.
I'm very happy here.
And that's where I'll respect Will Wade in this regard because when he was asked about it the other day, he was up front. He's like, look, I'm not going to lie to these guys. I'm not going to tell them what they're reading is not true. Yeah, I've been talking to him. The writing is on the wall that he's going to take that job whenever McNeese gets eliminated. But the unique thing about this is like everybody being cool with it, right? Like obviously Will Wade knows what he's going to be doing next. The AD was hugging him after the game, so he's cool with it. All these players who, like you said, likely aren't going to be there next year, some of them probably going to follow him to NC State. And heck, if they make a good enough run, they could go to other Power 4 schools, here in the next year or so. So everybody's like kind of on the same page, right? It's not like this, man, our coach is leaving us. We're going to be, who's going to be coaching us next year? Like, what's going to happen? Like, no, everybody's like, okay, we got X amount of games left. Let's go make this count.
So maybe this is a model moving forward, right? The sort of transparency between the players, the coach, the AD, everybody's on one accord. I think Will Wade's exact words was, they know what's up.
Yeah.
And so if everybody knows what's up and then we're all adults, we're all moving forward, maybe there is something to this transparency.
And I feel like players at McNeese State can understand, like, guys, NC State wants me to coach them. Here's the difference in salary. NC State, McNeese State. I get to go coach in the ACC, which looks a lot more winnable right now than it did, a handful of years ago. And obviously Will Wade is a very good coach from what he did at his time at LSU and obviously what he's been able to do at McNeese State. So, I don't think anybody can be mad at him for doing that. And look, he brought McNeese State their first win in tournament history. If that's the only one, if they get bowed out in the round of 32, okay, he still made history at the school, and people are going to remember him fondly for that.
Yeah, there's also this idea of, and I believe what you saw with the AD and Will Wade is that, to your point, I've sort of come around on it because I was like, I don't like this idea of a coach taking a job in the middle of a tournament. He's abandoning his players. But now that I'm hearing the transparency, hearing about the relationship between the AD and Will Wade, this may be a model moving forward of how teams operate. As you stated, Will Wade got McNeese State on this stage. Obviously, Will Wade is thankful and has a lot of gratitude for the AD because, if you don't remember, Will Wade, though successful at LSU, was told not to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And then if you dig into that, I know a lot of people would say, well, Will Wade was just ahead of the curve. He's a trailblazer. He was just a little bit ahead of his time in the things that he was not accused of, the things he was found guilty of doing. So there's a lot of meat on that bone. But I would just say my pick in that particular game was fueled by hatred of two institutions, Clemson and the NCAA. And so it all came together for me.
And here's the thing. Again, Clemson was a 5 seed. They were thought to be a team that was going to go deep in this tournament. I think either Elijah or Jay had them in like his Elite Eight or Final Four.
Come on, Jay. I hope it wasn't Jay.
Not only do you get to watch them get eliminated in the first round, you have a win over them this year in overtime for a South Carolina team that ended up being pretty bad. So who's laughing now?
Also, I think maybe Clark Kellogg had Clemson going to the Final Four.
Which, I understand completely.
I hear you, but that's one of those things that destroys your bracket.
Sure.
You're done.
Here's the thing, and like my wife has started filling out brackets since we've been married, and she filled out one the other day that I was looking at, and as we're watching the games yesterday, she's going through like, oh no, this team lost. Does that mean my bracket's done with? I'm like, no, nobody's gonna have a perfect bracket. There's never been a perfect bracket ever. As long as the teams that you pick to go deep are still alive, you'll accrue points and you'll be fine. But yeah, if your Final Four team is out on the first day, you're probably in trouble.
You're gonna have a long road to go. Also, in listening to my brother, my brother told me, you know where this is going.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah, I did select. So I had a win that was motivated by hate, and I had a loss that was motivated by love. I love my brother. I love the SEC, and they both let me down because Georgia took the L to Gonzaga.
They got waxed. It was 30-5 at one point. Yeah. This was ugly straight out the gate. And look, this is not the Gonzaga team from a couple years ago that was playing for a national championship, but they're very good. And I thought Georgia, when Georgia's on, they can hang with anybody. They were not on last night.
No.
And that game was over pretty quickly.
Yeah, so that was a rough one. So, again, not the most scientific means of how I picked both of those games, but I came out ahead on one side.
But that's the thing, is like
L on the other side.
The most scientific approach to a bracket is usually going to end up being wrong.
Right.
Like, again, it's the 7-year-old girl that's picking based off team colors that ends up doing better than everybody else.
Also, I took the L on Louisville because, I was like, Pat Kelsey, College of Charleston, cool.
Yeah, I took an L on that one too.
So that was a little bit rough.
They're practically playing a home game because it was in Lexington. But yeah, that one that started things off yesterday. So we both started off with an L then.
Okay, so really quickly before we move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about baseball. Baseball has a huge series coming up this week, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, the women getting started today. In their quest for back-to-back championships, so a lot happening in there. But looking at the SEC, Tyler, I've been a proponent of saying no conference deserves 14 teams. I would consider myself an SEC homer, but I've been like, I don't know if any conference deserves that many teams. And so, in the first round, the SEC in the first day, the SEC is 4-1.
Yep.
Mizzou being no, that's not true. 4-2. I'm sorry.
Do we count Texas as well?
Yes.
So 4-3.
As I was looking at my stats, right? So I don't know what that means. A lot of people would argue that Texas probably shouldn't have been in there. Maybe you would argue that Mizzou had a tough seed. Georgia got a rough draw. You can make all types of arguments. You can be an apologist for that. This is just something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the rest of this first round. Just seeing what the SEC does with all of these opportunities.
You definitely have to back up what's been touted as the greatest single season for a conference ever. And in my opinion, because again, SEC has not won a title since 2012. They've not played for a title. They had Final Four teams. Alabama was in the Final Four last year. But Kentucky playing for the championship in, I believe, 2014, so a decade ago, was the last time you were even in the national championship game. So, in my opinion, you at the very least have to get one team in the national championship game to justify what this season was.
Well, do you have an SEC team going to and or winning the championship?
I don't have them winning the championship. Actually, I believe, let me double check my bracket here. I think I have Duke and St. John's in the national championship. So I have St. John's beating Auburn in the Final Four.
Okay.
To go to the national championship.
Okay.
Look, controversial Rick Pitino is, he's a phenomenal coach, especially in the tournament. I'm riding the St. John's train.
You're not wrong on that. You're not wrong on that. I do have the Johnnies going pretty deep. All right, so when we come back, like I said, we're here for a good time, not a long time. I'm gonna be out of here after the end of the first segment at 7:15. So this is gonna be rapid fire. Appreciate y'all tuning in. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit of Paul Maneri. We'll talk baseball and their big series this weekend against Arkansas. This is the early game.
Okay. Hey, wanted to remind you once again, a week from today, next Friday, March the 28th, we are all going to be out at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia for the 107.5 The Game Spring Golf Classic this year in partnership with the Lexington County Gamecock Club. If you want to sign up with a foursome, give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000. Register. We'll have the par 5 golf ball cannon out there once again. We're also going to be giving away a pair of baseball and football season tickets to 2 lucky winners, and also going to be joined by special guest, Basketball Hall of Famer and former Gamecock great Alex English hanging out there with us as well. Again, if you want to sign up, give Charlie a call at 803-755-2000. Register for the 107.5 The Game Spring Golf Classic, partnering with Lexington County Gamecock Club. All right, let's take your first look at traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Not a whole lot going on out there as not everybody is up and awake just yet. Do have a fallen tree in the road at Harbison Boulevard between I-26 and the Broad River Roads. Be careful as you're making your way through that area. But other than that, everything looks relatively okay for right now. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. High today, going to get up to 64 with a lot of sunshine, 75 tomorrow, and then 76 on Sunday. It is currently 42 degrees here in downtown Columbia. It's traffic and weather on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, we're holding it down, running the two-man game this morning. Thank you all for joining us on a Friday morning. As I said in the intro, if you wasn't here, I'm in here for a good time, not a long time. I'm gonna have to, unfortunately, leave my guy here to man the ship solo. So we're gonna be rolling through this rapid fire. So, Tyler.
Yep.
Start with a philosophical question.
All right.
What came first? The chicken or the egg?
Oh, man. I guess if I had to choose the chicken, right? Because where would the egg come from?
Well, where did the chicken come from, Tyler?
That's a fair question.
See, this is how it's the cyclical nature of life that we cannot find an answer to. Maybe somebody out there has an answer to it. But here's the baseball equivalent to this question, Tyler.
All right.
And I want to hear Paul Mainieri talk about this because I feel like baseball lifers have had discussions like this, and I don't know whether this changes in the new era of baseball, but the question is this, Tyler. What's more important, strong first inning pitching or scoring first?
Fair question.
A philosophical question. Let's hear Paul Mainieri answer this question. I believe it's cut two. Let's hear Paul Mainieri answer this question. Let's come back and talk about it a little bit.
But it's always fun to get a lead because then you can execute your offense. You know, if you fall behind like we did to Oklahoma, couldn't steal bases, couldn't hit and run, couldn't bunt. You know, Monty had to be more conservative, holding runners up, you know, because you don't want to run into outs when you're losing. When you at least get a lead or you're even, you can be much more aggressive in your strategy. And so, you know, given a choice, you'd rather have a lead. But just because you get a lead doesn't mean you're going to win. Yeah. You know, you got to play 9 innings and get all 27 outs. Clock just doesn't run out on you in this sport as much as you'd like it to sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a really interesting idea. Now, I was trying to get into the statistics. I didn't have enough time to get all the way how far I wanted to get because I was trying to look at how many times the Gamecocks have scored in the first inning. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got to that. They've definitely not scored more in the first inning, which that makes sense.
Yeah, their offensive success tends to come in the middle innings, 4th, 5th, 6th. And again, that's just kind of thinking off the top of my head. But, yeah, they're a team a little bit slow out of the gate offensively, it seems
now,
like.
what I will say is, as I was looking at the statistics, in the games that they did score in the first inning, they won all of them except one, and that was to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this means, right? I don't know whether I don't know if there's enough actual quantifiable data, and I couldn't get as far as I wanted to get on figuring out, you know, what it means. But obviously, Paul Mainieri said, you know, you have to play the rest of the game. But that was an interesting peek again, as we're learning about who he is as a coach. Another peek into his philosophy.
Yeah, I feel like personally, I take the stronger pitching first because you don't want to put yourself behind to begin with. So, I mean, look at last week with Brandon Stone against Oklahoma where he got knocked around in the first inning and suddenly he had a hole to dig yourself out of, and he settled in and pitched fine in the innings after that, but you started the game at a deficit, right? So if you can have good, strong pitching, whether the home team or the away team, knowing that you're getting through that first inning at least even, or possibly having the lead yourself, I would take that over, okay, you score in the first inning, but what if the other team scores more than you? Then you're still playing from behind.
Right. And that's what he said to his philosophy. He indicated that a lot of their offensive philosophy is predicated on them being ahead. You can be a little bit more aggressive with the lead, whereas when you're behind, you might not be able to take as many chances because you don't want to just waste outs. Let's hear whether or not Paul Mainieri is satisfied with the offense. Clip number 3. Let's hear what he thinks about the offense this year so far.
Yeah. And we won.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Tennessee didn't win. Virginia didn't win. A lot of good teams didn't win. At least we found a way to win. Midweek games are crazy that way, because you just never know what your offense is going to do. And the other teams, it's such a big game for them to play the flagship school, their state, whatever. But we found a way. I'm never completely satisfied with your offense because, like I've said many times, Jack, if your offense played as well as you'd want it to, the game would never end. You'd never make 27 outs. So you're going to have some bad at bats. Your guys are going to strike out. You're going to hit into double plays. You're going to, not execute some strategy. You're going to get the guys thrown out on the bases. That's how the game is developed, because you got to make 27 outs or 24 outs if you're winning going into the bottom of the 9th inning. So you're never completely satisfied. But, there's good things, too. Look at Kazmar's coming on, obviously. Nathan Hall's been great all year. Petrie's been Petrie. Evan Stone has risen up a few times. Kennedy Jones risen up sometimes. I think KJ Scobie's getting better. There's a lot to be positive about. Jordan Carrion's doing his role really well. Bo Holland's had his moments, but it's hard to maintain it at a high level, especially when you're going up against caliber of pitching you do in this league. So, and a short answer to your question, am I satisfied? Some days yes, and some days no. It's just the nature of the game.
Typical coach.
Yeah.
Typical coach, never
always
quite.
Room for improvement.
Always looking for someplace. But looking at the names you just said, Nathan Hall hitting 398, Ethan Petrie 377, Kennedy Jones hitting 300, KJ Scobie hitting 294. Out of those guys, Tyler, who do you think is going to be the most important guy because Paul Mainieri is always focused on
always
this.
Focused on this.
So
weekend.
Just in this weekend right here, who do you think needs to show up?
Look, Petrie's always going to be kind of a given there, and we know his production kind of backs it up. Nathan Hall is your leadoff guy. Anytime your leadoff guy can continue to hit well, get on base, get around the base pass, and allow a guy like Petrie to drive him in a couple batters later, I'm always going to take that. So I think Nathan Hall just kind of getting the spark, getting the lineup going right there at the top, I think is going to be vitally important this weekend as it is every weekend.
And he's done that tremendously. Like I said, hitting 398 for the year. So he's going to have to continue that. What you always bank on is that your best player is going to be your best player, and that's
that's almost kind of like we don't even have to say like, oh, well, Ethan Petrie needs to have a big weekend. Like he's probably going to have a pretty good weekend, all things considered. And again, when you kind of look at the offensive numbers for South Carolina in the SEC so far, they're towards the bottom in a lot of categories. They are 14th or tied for 13th overall in total average. They're towards the bottom when it comes to strikeouts. They're towards the bottom when it comes to home runs because the ball's not been flying off the bat quite as much. So there's a lot of room for improvement. And again, we're only a third of the way through the season as of right now, and we know Mainieri's teams tend to get better as the season goes along. I've said this many times, though. We're in the midst of the toughest 8-game stretch of the entire season. Started with Charleston the other night, got that win. Arkansas this weekend. North Carolina, another highly ranked team in the midweek, and then the defending national champs come to your house next weekend. And what happens over the course of these now 7 games determines how the rest of the season goes. Because if you come out of that 2-6, you're probably in trouble.
Okay, with that being said, what's your feeling as far as expectations are concerned coming out of this? Ideally, really tough part of the schedule.
If you can get to 4-4 and you can take at least one series, I feel pretty good. Now, again, going on the road to Arkansas, not easy. Taking on the number 1 team in the country at home, not easy as well. But if you can find a way to win one of those series, just kind of get yourself. Because here's the thing: you've played 2 series against high-level competition, and you're a combined 1-5 in those games. You've got to figure out how to win at least one of these series in the next 2 weeks to not only for the team, but for the fan base, confidence, knowing that you have the ability to do that. Because, again, it's great that you can sweep Morehead State and Sacred Heart and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't really matter a whole lot at the end of the day if you're not able to beat SEC teams.
So that's the partly cloudy report. The partly sunny report is that in those 1-5 games, I believe all of them were decided by one run, except for one maybe, right?
Yeah, the Friday Oklahoma.
The end of the Clemson game also.
Yeah,
that got out of hand.
You were in every single game in the late innings. We'll phrase it, that way. So you're competitive, and much like the basketball team, men's basketball team, you got to figure out how to get over that hump.
Right.
And again, Maneri's been there and done that. We kind of give him the benefit of the doubt.
We do.
Right. Like I feel like if this was Coach Kingston's team a year ago and these same things were happening, we're already pressing the panic button. Like, oh no, season's going off the rails. But like, okay. Trust the process. Let's see what Maneri's got over the course of an entire season. But again, these 8 games you're in the middle of right now are vitally important on where you're going to be halfway through the season and what happens in the second half.
Well, speaking of a coach that we trust the process, Coach Staley and her group are looking to repeat, looking for another championship, looking to add to the trophy case. When we come back, we'll discuss them as they start their run today or tonight? What's the time?
4:00 tip. That's late afternoon.
What is that, late afternoon?
Yeah, I would say
this afternoon.
Tonight to me doesn't really start till like 6.
Okay, so
today.
Yeah, so they start their run today. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit about them. This is the early game. Hey, Columbia, are you looking for the best gear to tackle your lawn? Well, you need to call Cato's Power Equipment, your go-to spot. Cato's Power Equipment has been family-owned and serving the Midlands since 1983. That's over 40 years. And third-generation owner Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom-and-pop values that you love. At Cato's, they are proud to offer a wide selection of new and pre-owned mowers, tractors, and more. So if you're ready to invest in something new, the friendly team is there to make the process easy, help you choose the right equipment, and find financing options. And more importantly, once you do that, they can keep your gear running strong with expert service and parts. So swing by Cato's Power Equipment today. They'll help you power up your next project. Call them at 803-254-3711. That's 803-254-3711. Or better yet, come by and experience their superior service and selection. That's Ben's Cato Power Equipment.
All right, now look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Still have that fallen tree that is at Harbison Boulevard between I-26 and Broad River Road. So be careful as you make your way out there. Just popped up a disabled vehicle at I-77 northbound and Jackson Boulevard. Don't believe any lanes are blocked at this point in time, but be careful as you make your way through there as well. Again, going to be a beautiful weekend. High today going to be 64. Lots of sunshine. High tomorrow 75. And then 76 on Sunday before rain rolls back in at the beginning of next week. That's look at your traffic and weather on the early game.
I think it's super cool. I never really thought about it. I didn't until you asked the question because we stay present. But to think about them being able to do something that no other class has ever done, it would be them. It will be them because I do believe that this class sacrificed the most of all of them. But because of their sacrifice, they put us in a position to make history. And I love this class for that, and they don't get the credit. Like, they don't get the individual credit that they deserve. They don't get the national credit that they deserve, but they get the national spotlight because they win. They are winners through and through, and I don't think there's another class within the past, 10 years, maybe 8. I'll go 8. That's won 2 national championships, let alone 3. So, or the possibility of winning 3.
That was Coach Staley talking about the possibilities as they get ready for the run. If you just tuned in, it's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head running the 2-man game this morning. Coach Staley's talking about the legacy of this particular senior class. And It was interesting when she said that they don't get the acknowledgement, they don't get the level of recognition. And at first you're like, I don't know about that, Coach. But when you think about it locally, we had the freshies that came through. They were the loved class. We knew we can identify all of them. You had some of the earlier classes that won the first championship with Asia and those guys and those women. And so this class, the senior class, I would challenge people, if you was to say, like, who's in this senior class, I would imagine maybe you wouldn't even quite be sure who that was.
I had to look it up last night just to double check to make sure I was getting the names right for today. Because again, it's not names that come to the forefront of your mind. I think we can call this like the grinder class.
I like it.
Right? Like, again, kind of that glue in between of like the freshies, and obviously you had Tessa and Malaysia Fulwiley coming in a year ago and how impactful they were. But by the way, it's Sanaya Fagan, Bree Hall, and Raven Johnson who have been here for 4 years and are getting set to play in their 4th NCAA tournament. Let me run some numbers by you real quick of what they've accomplished to this point before ever even playing in their 4th tournament.
Okay.
A combined record of 139-6. 4 SEC regular season championships, 3 consecutive SEC tournament championships, 16 NCAA tournament wins, 3 Final Four appearances, 2 national championships, and an unbeaten season so far.
So far. As they get ready to make it, they get ready to play today for another run. And like you said, both of the two players, obviously, all 3 of them, when she talks about the sacrifices that they made, Sanaya obviously sitting for a majority of her career behind 2 dominant post players, which again, it's hard not to sit behind.
So it's like, am I saying I'm supposed to be out there ahead of them? No,
right. So that's a tough spot for her to be in. Has stepped up this year with the injury to Ashlyn Watkins, so that's been interesting. But when you look at Bree Hall, what she's asked to do on a regular basis, she's essentially comes in as the defensive stopper. Oftentimes, she's playing against the team's best scorer. Mm-hmm. That's usually her
Very important
assignment.
At the SEC tournament the other week.
She basically locked down Madison Booker from Texas, basically, and took it personally that was going to be her job for her to do. Raven Johnson, whose also story is interesting because I think her story is one of the coolest stories in sports, because when you go back, it kind of has a whether you want to know a hero or a villain arc, whichever way you want to go.
Sure.
That starts with that Iowa game where she's essentially embarrassed on the court, left off. This is where the Caitlin Clark narrative really starts to rise up, and then you see Raven come on the revenge tour last year as the point guard, as the general of the team. So it's two women on this team that handle really essential parts of the team, but not necessarily parts that are going to get a lot of glory or shine.
Yeah, and again, look, we fully expect this team to be good enough to make another run at the Final Four and hopefully win another national championship, which would make 3 for this class. And even years from now, we're not going to be sitting here thinking, wow, that class of Fagan, Hall, and Johnson, that was the most successful class of freshmen in the history of South Carolina women's basketball. Like, no, it's not going to be something you think about a lot. You say, well, certainly it was the freshmen. Certainly it was whatever these other classes that ended up having nicknames in years to come are. But, they've been here, and they've obviously seen a lot of success, and they've been kind of that glue in between of a lot of those. Because, again, you wouldn't say any of these women are the superstars of the team. Again, they have their moments, and Fagan, again, like you said, defensively has done a great job since Ashley Watkins has been down. Raven Johnson will lead the team in scoring occasionally, but you wouldn't say they're the faces of the team by any means, but they play an integral part on why this team's successful.
I would say the integral part. So you can't have, as we saw with the men's basketball team, if you don't have a point guard, it's going to be rough. You don't have a point that can distribute, and then you have to have somebody who can get a defensive stop, and that's what Bree Hall does as far as getting the stops. Raven takes care of the ball in a lot of instances, and so this team is going for back-to-backs.
Yes.
And that is where you really start to separate yourselves or ascend into they already elite.
Yep.
Right? But this is a huge step as far as what people remember.
If you didn't already think they were a dynasty, I feel like winning back-to-back solidifies that for most everybody. And no surprise, the last team to go back-to-back was UConn to end their run of 4 straight a decade ago. And again, Carolina has been the better program since then, but I think some people may still be hesitant, like, I know they've won a couple national championships, but maybe not ready to unseat Gino and UConn yet. But if you do this, especially if you beat UConn in the process of doing this and avenge your loss, then there's nobody can deny you as a dynasty at that point.
Let's hear what Coach Staley has to say about that legacy. I believe it's 14.
One, I think we've created a legacy already. So whether we win this one or not, I think it's going to go down in history as our team, our program has done things that programs that haven't done in a very long time during the most competitive, like this is the most competitive that women's basketball has been in a long time. And there's a lot of parity within our game. But for us to be able to have won 3 in the past 7, 8 years, that doesn't happen a whole lot. I mean, UConn is in a class by itself. Like, I don't ever think that's going to be matched, no matter what era we are in. But since we're in this era, I could probably say what we've done over the past 8 years won't be done again. So we're just going to compare eras. I do think if this senior class is able to do what we all are planning to do, which is win another one, yes, it's even more of a legacy in our game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to your point about UConn, that was in a different time.
It was. Well, obviously before the transfer portal, before NIL, and before there was as much competitive balance across the nation. Again, we're looking at this year's tournament, South Carolina, Texas, UCLA, Southern Cal as the #1 overall seed, saying, whew, that's 4 really, really good programs. And there's been plenty of years where you can't necessarily say that about the top 4 teams in the women's bracket, but you have so many good programs around the country now that winning a national championship, I feel like now is harder than it's ever been. So for Dawn to do that, like she had 3 national championships in roughly 7-ish years and potentially a 4th one and back-to-back this year, I think that does, in this era, solidify you as the dynasty to beat.
Yeah, and also I think the biggest thing about what their legacy might be is just raising the level of play in the game, because as she stated, we've been spoiled around here. And this run may be coming to a little bit less. It may be happening a little bit less because the other teams are getting so much better, and the play has improved so much around the country, which is a great thing for the overall product. We just around here have been really fortunate to be a part of that. So we'll see how that gets started this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Don't expect major challenges. I know Coach has tried to sell it about Scott. I understand, Coach.
Gotta watch what Skyhawks, I think they are. I think they're to the Tennessee Tech Skyhawks, but yeah, she can try all she wants. By the way, do you know the average margin of victory they have over teams in the first round in Dawn Staley's tenure?
If I said 50, I'll take the over.
Not quite.
Okay.
They have had a couple 50-plus point wins.
Yes.
It's 32.
Yeah.
They're beating teams by an average of 32 points in the first round since Dawn Staley's been.
Yeah, that feels about right. And again, shout out to those women from Tennessee Tech.
Tennessee Tech, yep.
They get to come to the mecca of college basketball.
They do. Hey, they got to stay up in a nice hotel.
What a great trip for them.
I'm sure they're eating some nice food in town.
They're going to take a picture with the Asia statue.
Yeah, they can, I don't know, go to a museum on Saturday or something like that.
This is the best possible. If you had to be a 16 seed and go somewhere, this is the best possible place you could go.
Absolutely. It's a fun place. Not that far of a drive, so they weren't on the bus for 12 hours or something like that. So, yeah, enjoy it. Do some sightseeing. Hang out in the Vista on Saturday or Sunday because you don't have a game to play at that point.
It's true.
And, yeah, enjoy it.
Hey, good luck to them, but I don't think we'll need too much of it. All right, when we come back, let's talk about our guy who is seemingly always making his rounds, Xavier Leggett, on the way back. This is the early game. Press here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. Cracked windshield? No problem. They'll come out to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they work directly with the insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, take care of the job, take care of anything that you need. Now, if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows or mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you, too. windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. Say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at absoluteglassinc.com. That's online at absoluteglassinc.com.
It's lava time, baby. Man, this here might be better than raccoon on Thanksgiving, man. It's lava time, baby. It's lava time, baby. It is lava time, baby. Oh, yeah. It was lava time, baby.
Don't know what's going on? Me either. Tyler, what's happening here?
Yes, I guess if you don't have the visual behind that, you're probably very, very confused. That, of course, is the voice of Xavier Legette, who is now a spokesperson for Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Okay.
Now, are you familiar with the latest Reese's Cups they've come out with?
Well, I'm not, but if I'm using my context clues, is there some sort of gusher-like quality to them?
Yeah, so they have like these lava cups, which is like a Reese's cup with like a pocket on the bottom that's full of like melted chocolate, essentially, that kind of, when you bite into it, it oozes out. They have like a caramel version as well. They're very good, very sweet. Obviously, it's bigger than a normal Reese's Cup, but yeah, he is promoting the standard lava version of the Reese's Cup.
So he's not for Reese's Cups as a whole. It's lava
It's
time.
Specifically the lava. I guess that's their tag, is it's lava time.
It's lava time.
Because in the little, it's not really commercial. It's more just like a video of him going to like a Reese's machine, which I need one of those, and getting it out of there, and then like taking a bite. Hey, it's lava time. What's funny is I remember, because listen, they love putting a camera and microphone in front of Leggett because everything he says is just hilarious. I remember around Halloween they asked him, "Hey, what's your favorite candy?" He's like, "I really don't eat candy." So that must have been a good check from the Hershey Corporation to be like, "Hey, you're gonna eat some candy for us."
That was then. This is now.
This is now.
Now it's lava time.
I was gonna say, maybe the Reese's lava was so good it changed his perception on candy.
Well, let's hear it one more time with a little bit of context. Now that people know what it is, let's hear it again.
It's lava time, baby. Man, this here might be better than raccoon on Thanksgiving, man. It's lava time, baby. It's lava time, baby. It is lava time, baby. Oh, yeah. It was lava time, baby.
Better than raccoon on Thanksgiving. That's saying something.
Yeah, sure. To a very small segment of the population, I'm sure they could get to that one, man. Congratulations, Xavier. You have found your niche. It's paying you well. It's doing great. You have exploded on the scene. I mean, he's everywhere.
He is. People just love to hear him talk.
And the thing is, he was right here this whole time.
But he was so quiet when he was here.
That's true.
Like, think about his post-game pressers. He was usually always up there with, like, Rattler, right? And, like, you know, Rattler would say whatever he says and say, yeah, it was good. Caught the ball, ran for touchdown, whatever it may be. And he was really quiet, man. He didn't really let that personality out.
The first clue I had into that personality, I believe it was Rattler. Spencer was making fun of the way he talked.
Yeah.
I thought Spencer was just making fun of the way Southern people talk, because he's from Arizona, I thought he was just getting a Southern accent messed up. No.
Yeah, that was X.
This was something totally different. Okay, so I got it. I guess so my question is 803-404-6100. This is a really simple one. Is it lava time? Yes or no? If you're going to get a Reese's, is it lava time? That is a really simple question.
I'd recommend trying it at least once. Maybe it might be too sweet for you.
What you think? Yes or no, Tyler?
To me, look, I'm a Reese's fiend.
Yes.
It is my number one candy, always has been, always will be, and all their candies are exceptional. I wouldn't put lava at number one, but it's pretty good.
So it is lava time.
It's lava time.
All right. So it's lava time. Tyler thinks it's lava time. 803-404-6100. Lava time. Yes or no? We got one more segment. This is the early game.
I want to remind you once again, as we head into another baseball series this weekend, as South Carolina takes on Arkansas out there in Fayetteville, another opportunity for you to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. If a Gamecock batter can knock it over the fence with runners loading the bases, you could win all the cash currently in the pot, which sits right now at $175. $25 goes in the pot each and every game. And again, when the Gamecocks hitter can blast a grand slam, we will give all that money away on this very show in the days after that. So go online to 1075thegame.com if you've not already and register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. And that way, if a Gamecock batter hits a Grand Slam this weekend, you could end up winning all that money for yourself coming up as soon as next week. Again, 1075thegame.com, Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. All right, now it's time for another look at your traffic and weather for this ride-in on your Friday morning. As more people get out on the roadways, things still looking pretty tame as of right now. That tree is still down at Harbison Boulevard near Broad River Road, so be careful as you make your way through there. Just up from that, have a disabled vehicle at I-26 westbound near Lake Murray Boulevard. Not seeing any lanes being closed or blocked at this point in time, but just be mindful of that vehicle there. And still also have the disabled vehicle out at I-77 northbound and Jackson Boulevard as well. Going to be a beautiful weekend to get outside. High today is going to be 64, plenty of sunshine. High tomorrow, 75, 76 on Sunday. Rain rolls back into town coming up on Monday, but it's going to be a nice weekend. That's traffic and weather on the other game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head running the pick and roll in here, running the two-man game. Soon to be an ISO, four corners. Tyler's just going to be and one, dribbling the air out the ball, getting to the rack.
I'll figure it out. Yeah, it's gonna be something.
Obviously, always appreciate Tyler for being the glue guy at the station, man. Really, seriously appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do for us. I got to run some kids up the road a little bit to visit some schools, so I'll be in and out. But like I said, early in the 6 o'clock, in here for a good time, not a long time. So this was rapid fire. We're moving quickly, and obviously the stories from last night was the beginning of the madness, the beginning of the tournament, the beginning of all of the things that we love and provided. Yes, no,
Yeah,
lived up to it.
I was gonna say, kind of thinking about it on like a scale of 1 to 10. I think we got a solid 7 for our first day.
Okay, so here's the deal, Tyler. 1 to 10, but you can't use 7.
Okay, 1 to too many games, 7. All right. Is that kind of like the cop-out answer?
That's 7. 7. There's like
Okay.
1 to 5, no threes.
Yeah.
What do you want?
I'll go. Can I do halves?
Sure.
I'll go 6.5.
6.5. Okay.
Yeah, because so if you're gonna do above 7, get into the 8, 9 range. Like obviously, if you're getting ones losing to 16s or 15s losing to or beating 2s, then we're talking 9, 10 category. If you're getting crazy buzzer beaters and stuff like that, kind of around that 8, 9, 10. You had UC San Diego lose by missing the last second 3 against Michigan. Mm-hmm. That was kind of one of the ones that kind of went down to the wire. Obviously, you had some upsets. You had Drake, my Cinderella team this year, taking down Missouri. And then you had McNeese dismantling Clemson in the first half and holding them off there, in the second half. So you had some upsets. Great game between Kansas and Arkansas last night, which we kind of expected. But no crazy back and forth nuts kind of games like we saw the other night with Alabama State and St. Francis. So not tame necessarily, but a solid first day.
But an opening night, solid opening night with another day to come today.
I think so.
Some room for improvement. Some teams are winning. There's some candidates. Maybe if we looked at our brackets and saw there's some potential there.
Give me a huge shocker. You know what I mean? Give me a last second buzzer beater or a team making an insane comeback and winning in the last 10 minutes or something like that. Then we start ticking up into those higher numbers.
Well, let's talk about it. The McNeese-Clemson game, which if you weren't here in the 6 o'clock, I and Bill, we both picked McNeese. I don't know what Bill's motivations were. Mine were purely hate.
Yeah, which is fine.
It was just motivated by hatred of two institutions. don't like the dudes in the purple pants, and also the NCAA. And I want to see Will Wade make a very long run in this tournament just to see how we all reconcile with a lame duck coach who is...
Well, NC State's just kind of twiddling their thumbs like, all right, any day now. That portal's open.
The NC State fans are celebrating with their new coach. They got a new team. McNeese State is their new squad. So that was my only reasons really for picking that particular game. And then I also picked Drake over Missouri. I've seen Missouri this year, even though I've seen them twice. We played them.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, all right.
They benefit from being in the best conference.
Yes.
But they were a okay team in the best conference.
And that's the thing. Yes, they played in the toughest conference, but they weren't, to me, when I watched them, they weren't very good in the toughest conference. And I've been pretty vocal on here saying no conference deserves as many bids as the SEC. I know it was the greatest year ever. I understand all of that. But 14 to me is ridiculous.
Let me ask you this, because we've been looking at Missouri as that ray of sunshine off the distance.
You remember.
Like, hey, they lost every single game a year ago. Mm-hmm. They bounced back. They got to the tournament. If I told you right now that South Carolina is going to get beat by an 11 seed in next year's tournament, would you take it?
In a heartbeat, absolutely.
It means you made it, right?
That means we made it.
Now, it's disappointing that you lost to a much lower seed, but at least you got back.
Yeah, I would take it in a heartbeat. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Now that when you pose it like that, and we have been looking at Missouri as maybe a potential blueprint or model to follow for our rebuild next year.
Blueprint up until the tournament starts.
Yeah, then they get it together. Okay, Arkansas.
Yes, with Cal. Yes.
And Kansas. Is that an upset?
No, it's not. Kansas, they started year number one, I believe. Mm-hmm. They did not perform up to usual Kansas standards. I feel like the Big 12 as a whole was not as strong this year. Mm-hmm. And Arkansas, as bad as they started off, and again, Carolina nearly got them in the tournament the other week. They played their best basketball towards the end. I know they played that awful game here at Colonial Life Arena, but they got better as the season went along. And here's the thing. Coach Calipari is a good tournament coach. I know the last couple of years Kentucky weren't that great, but he has a track record of playing really good in this thing. Sometimes you just have to trust the coach. That's why I got St. John's going as far as they are, because I just trust Rick Pitino. As slimy as he may be, he's a phenomenal tournament coach, and I think he can take that team very far.
It's really interesting that you say that, because that's sort of my when I was looking at the teams, if I was saying I'm just going with chalk here, a lot of times I would just say, like, who's the coach that I know, who's the coach that's better.
Yep.
That's why I have Izzo going so deep.
Sure.
That's why I have
Makes sense.
That's why I have Pitino going so deep. And I do feel like in college basketball, coaching is at a premium, and it matters, especially when these games get down into crunch time, which they will.
Yeah. It's a lot on the coaching. And Dawn talked about this yesterday. She was asked the question of why her teams are so good in these tournaments. She said it's the assistants because of the quick turnaround. Because, again, let's just say you played in the first round yesterday. Well, guess what? You've got a game coming up tomorrow. You have roughly 48 hours to scout your next opponent. And I imagine, depending on if you played before them or after them, as you're walking off the court, there's assistants already saying, okay, here's what I got to do. Got to plan for this, got to get for that, got to watch this tape, got to watch that tape, and get us ready. Like, it's different than playing in the regular season because you have Wednesday game, Saturday game, Tuesday game, Saturday game, where you have time to prepare. It's not the same in the tournament. You have quick turnarounds, and some programs, some coaches are better at doing that than others.
And this is where the manpower of some of these huge universities with all of these staffs, they might could have somebody scouting the next two possible opponents, whereas McNeese State.
And that's why at the end of the day, because, again, we get upsets in the early rounds. Sometimes you'll have a St. Peter's run all the way to the Elite Eight or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why Cinderellas don't win the national championship, because the resources that the Dukes, the Kansases, the Kentuckys, the whatevers have are going to end up winning out in the end.
Yeah, and a lot of times people think when they say resources, especially now, you're thinking just, NIL player, but it's everything around. It's a support for those teams. And it's a long grind to get, as Bruce Pearl said, it's only 6 wins away.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a long way for it to happen. So we'll see. Auburn obviously took care of their business. I was motivated by hate to pick Clemson, to pick McNeese. I was motivated by love in these other games that I lost. My brother's a Georgia guy,
Yep.
as you know, and we talked about.
Me and him need to talk sometime.
You do.
Get on the same wavelength about some things.
You do.
I'm sure we could share some similar stories.
He was very adamant about Georgia over Gonzaga. I was like, bro,
Man,
I love you. I'm gonna go with it.
It's been 10 years.
But here's the thing: we're in a bracket competition,
Okay.
and so he lost that game too.
Yeah. Now, look, I had them winning against Gonzaga and then immediately getting bounced by Houston because I didn't think they were capable of doing that.
too.
But I thought, okay, a little bit of magic. First tournament in 10 years. Maybe you can have something against Gonzaga. But, man, they came out of the gate completely flat. That Gonzaga team was up by 25 points in the blink of an eye, and it was over from there. They played better in the second half.
They weren't able to crawl back. Much like, to be quiet as kept, I turned the channel away from the Clemson game.
Yeah?
And when I came back, I was like, oh.
Yeah. No, they legitimately played one of the worst first halves I've ever seen in a tournament. And, again, they outplayed them in the second half, but McNeese did enough to hold them off.
So here's where, obviously, basketball is different than baseball because Coach Meneres keeps telling you how you got to get 27 outs. You have to win the game. You have to finish the game. I would position that if that game has 5 more minutes,
Oh, yeah.
Clemson wins the game, right?
Yeah.
They just ran out of time.
You look at their numbers in that second half compared to McNeese State, they were playing head and shoulders better than them. But again, you play 40 minutes of basketball for a reason. McNeese dominating the first 20 minutes ended up being the difference. And again, Clemson, a very good team. A lot of people probably had them in their Final Four, making deep runs, but I think that busted a lot of brackets yesterday. Classic 12-5, right?
Yeah, and I believe they set it up for those reasons. I'm not sure if they knew it was going to be that one, but I believe they set it up for those reasons. All right, man. Tyler, been fun.
Yep.
It's been, like I said, it was a good time, not a long time. I appreciate everybody out there listening. Have a great weekend, great sports weekend.
Yep.
Let's see, when we come back on Monday, let's see what those brackets look like. Hopefully we'll have a big win, big series win in baseball this weekend. The women, I'm pretty convinced they're going to take care of business.
I think they'll be all right.
We'll be talking about them again on Monday. Appreciate y'all. Well, this is the early game.
All right, let's take another look at your traffic and weather free ride in on this Friday morning. People getting out and about as they head into work and school, and roadways still, for the most part, staying pretty clean as of right now. A couple disabled vehicles to still report on. One at I-26 westbound at Lake Murray Boulevard, then the other one at I-77 northbound at the Jackson Boulevard exit. And one more thing just popping up here. Do have a little bit of a slowdown in the area of Farrow Road there on I-20. Let's see. That is... object in the roadway. Excuse me. At 277 south at I-20. So be careful as you're making your way through there. Again, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. High today, 64. Plenty of sunshine here on the game. And welcome back in. It is the early game. Tyler Head flying solo now. Preston had to go off to do his teaching duties. Bill is out for his 8,000th day so far this year. And Jen having some stuff to do today, next couple days. So holding down the fort all by myself. So it'll be fun for the next hour and a half or so as we continue on with the early game. But it is Friday. It is 7:15, 7:17 now, which means we check in with our guy Chris Deering to see what's going on across the high school sports landscape in the state of South Carolina. Chris, appreciate your time as always. Got to be nice that the weather's finally starting to turn a little bit and those outside sports become a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think last night was a little chilly, but it's always good when the weather starts changing. I know I had before that little brief rain shower yesterday, had a yellowish, greenish car with all the pollen that's falling.
Yeah, I took a big dose of NyQuil DayQuil before I came in here today.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm sure it's going to be worse today after the rain. But, these sports in the spring are really getting cranked up now. Things are in full swing. Everybody's playing. There's no team sitting out now, so it's just getting exciting, and I can't wait to get out to some games. I'm a little hobbled right now with wearing a boot around, but I can still get out and get around, so I should get out to some games this coming week and get to see these teams in person. I've been to a couple baseball games, haven't been to anything else so far, but looking forward to getting to softball and some soccer and some other things here in the next coming few weeks.
We need to get you one of those little knee scooters.
I've already been told I need to get a scooter, but I refuse to take that route. I'm hopefully I'm going to be in this boot for about 2 weeks, and from there we'll see what's going on.
Okay, well, hopefully not too much longer on that. What's on your radar when you do get a chance to get out there and watch some of these teams?
Well, you look at the baseball. Like I said, I've gone to some baseball games, and you're just looking at the baseball landscape across the Midlands. That 5A region that's got Lexington and River Bluff, Dutch Fork, Irmo, Chapin, White Knoll, that is going to be a battle every single week. You look at things early in the season. 5A, James Island was number one in preseason, and Chapin's already beat James Island in a preseason tournament. Lexington has gone down to James Island and beat them already, so they've knocked off the number one team. Lexington is the defending state champions. They have Brandon Cromer, who's committed to South Carolina. They got another kid, Christian Spivey, who's really good. That Chapin team, again, they went down and beat James Island. I think that was the first game of the year, as a matter of fact. Charlie Todd, Caden Reeves, those kids are really good. River Bluff, they were coming into the season maybe overlooked because they were really young, but I think they've played well in the early going. Trip Hutto, Maddox Free, a couple of those guys just really carried that team. So that region, again, every game is going to be a battle. Irmo and Lexington played this week, and I forgot to mention Irmo when I was naming the teams. They're in that region as well. They split games. Chapin and Dutch Fork split this week. So this could be a really fun region to watch. And I'm going to tell you, when the playoffs start, that's going to be – you're going to have to play those teams. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some lower seeds, pull off the upsets when the playoffs start. But I think 5A is really exciting here in the Midlands. And I didn't even mention a team that's probably playing the best out of anybody right now, and that's Blythewood. They're 11-1. They got a catcher who's committed to Clemson. What's his name right now? I have it written down here somewhere. Leopard. He's going to Mason Leopard. He's going to Clemson. Alex Myers, their shortstop, is going to Wofford. They've been playing really well. Like I said, they're 11-1. They've played AC Flora a couple times. They play AC Flora again tonight. That's the team in 4A, I think, that's going to make a lot of noise, along with probably Airport and Gilbert. They probably have a lot to say when the playoffs come. So, again, baseball is really good here in the Midlands. I've been a little bit more baseball than I have anything else, but, softball and soccer and track, there's a lot of teams here in the Midlands that are going to be competing for state championships coming here in a few weeks.
I was just going to ask you, what can you tell us about softball as the spring rolls along here?
Well, the team here in the Midlands, I think that everybody has to keep an eye on, is Great Collegiate. Aspen Boulware has been on the radar since she was an 8th grader, and I think she's now a sophomore, and she might be the best softball player in the state. But they also have a pitcher, Maddox Long, Navia Matthews, and I think they got another young pitcher, Mackenzie Cease. They're 11-1, rolling right along. I think the only game they've lost to is a perennial power in Burns. So they're really, that team is really good over at Great Collegiate, and they've been good for a number of years. They won some state championships, and they got to be the favorite again this year, I think, with that lineup that they have. But there's some other good teams around the area. Blythewood, again, they're 11-2, so they're very strong. And I think they got a chance to make some noise. Chapin's team's really good. They played a really competitive schedule. I haven't seen Lexington. Don't know how good they are this year, but historically they're really good. And then Gilbert, another team that's been playing really well early in the season. They're 7-1, along with another 4A school in Airport. I think, again, softball in this area is – I always say during basketball season that if you go win a state championship, you're probably going to have to beat a team from the Midlands to get to that point, because that's how good basketball is in this area. But I think the spring sports are just as strong here in Columbia as it is anywhere in the state.
Again, talking to our guy Chris Deering about what's going on with high school sports across the state of South Carolina, and certainly excited to hear more in the next couple weeks. You get out and see some of these, see a few more of these teams in person. But of course, we're in the midst of the funnest time of the sports calendar in general, with March Madness going on. Preston and I were discussing a little bit earlier the status of our brackets after one day. How's yours holding up so far?
During the day yesterday, I was looking really good. So we played the night games last night, and ended up not terribly bad. I think I'm probably where most people are right now, 12-4 after day one. So not terrible, right there, still in the mix. And I got a family pool going, and I got a work pool going, so I only filled out 2 brackets. Made them a little bit different, but 12-4 in both of them after day one. So we'll see what the day holds. And last night was fun. Watching Drake pull off the upset, that was really fun to watch. And just the games yesterday, the comeback Clemson almost made. I mean, that was. Give them another minute, they might make that comeback fully. That was the one I only missed in the daytime, and then missed 3 last night. But yeah, it's the best time of the year, man. If you can't get excited for March Madness, I don't know what. You're probably not a sports fan, is all I can say. And looking forward to the Lady Gamecocks getting started today. Hosting here in Columbia, that'll be big time like they always do, and hopefully for them and the fans here in Columbia, they're on their way to another national championship.
I was going to say, as you mentioned the Clemson game a moment ago, obviously South Carolina men didn't have the season we wanted them to have. coming off their tournament appearance a season ago. But beating Clemson in overtime and then watching them lose to a number 12 seed in the opening round, that's not as good as South Carolina being in the tournament, but it at least gives you something to be satisfied about, right?
Well, you got to think that was the best game South Carolina played all year. Obviously, I was at that game and it was exciting. Went to overtime if I'm not mistaken. And you look, South Carolina went 3-0 against the ACC, and everybody talked about how bad South Carolina was this year. Again, 14 teams got in the NCAA tournament in the SEC. Historically, that's a historic season, and you put South Carolina in another conference. And I know this got asked of, I don't know, my mind just went blank. The coach there at the SEC tournament, they are in the SEC, and that's where he wants to be.
Yep.
And but if you put them in another conference, I don't think they finish as bad as they did. And I think they probably are challenging for a tournament berth. And people, I think, lose sight of that sometimes. And I think you got to look at the overall big picture. Yeah, it was a very disappointing season, but you played in the toughest conference that's ever been in basketball, college basketball history, and you competed in several of those games. And I think this team really didn't know how to win for whatever reason that is, because they had some very close games. You look, they took Florida to the buzzer. They led the whole game. Florida's probably picked in most brackets as the national champions. Auburn, they took to the buzzer. Should have won it if they made a couple of free throws at the end. So this team had talent. It was not as bad as I think the fan base wants to make it out to be. But
yep.
Hopefully they can rebuild and get things going back in the right direction next season.
Hopefully so. It's going to be a very important offseason. Chris, we appreciate your time. And next week you'll be back in here with Bill and Preston, the proper early game.
Yep, sounds good. I appreciate you filling in. You always do a great job. Sounds like you're producing and everything this morning. So
I'm a one-man band. I'm doing everything.
There you go.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Chris.
All right, have a great weekend.
All right, Chris Deering, of course, giving us what's going on with the high school scene. Coming up next, if you did not hear it earlier on this week, we're out at Pro Day over at the football facility. Myself and Wes Mitchell on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour got to sit down with Clayton Light for a couple minutes, get a lot of good insight into this team as we head into spring practice now that's already started a couple days ago. And I want to let you listen to that if you've not gotten the opportunity to already. That's coming up next as the early game rolls along. Tyler Head, I'm flying solo, going up until 9 here on your Friday on the Game. All right, now they'll look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning as things get a little more active out there on the roadways. Everybody heading into work and school, but for now, everything looking pretty okay. Still have a disabled vehicle at I-26 westbound in Lake Murray Boulevard, as well as an object in the roadway still out at I-20 and 277 southbound. So be careful as you're making your way through there. Again, beautiful weekend ahead. 64 the high today with plenty of sunshine. 75 tomorrow and 76 on Sunday. That's traffic and weather on the early game. Welcome back into the early game. Tyler Head along with you here. Earlier on this week, myself and Wes Mitchell got to speak with Clayton White out at South Carolina Pro Day. Here's a little bit of that conversation, starting off with Clayton talking about getting to talk to NFL teams about his defensive players going into the draft.
Yeah, I do believe once those NFL scouts, they do a great job of their homework. On the field is the easy part for them to figure out what kind of player they are, but they do a lot of soul searching. And pretty much when an NFL scout or executive asks me about a player, I know they want to know how does he learn, what's his character like, and it's definitely been pretty cool being able to talk about our guys, knowing that you don't have to try to hide anything, and you can be honest 99% of the time, and make sure that you're giving those kids a good look.
Of course, a lot of you guys got to be at the NFL Scouting Combine a couple weeks ago to Indianapolis. Nicky Moore blew everybody out of the water with all of his testing to where he was talked about maybe being one of the best guys out of anybody in the entire Combine. You're around him every single day. Did anything about what he did up there surprise you at all?
It's funny you say that because, I text Nick. I said, Nick, this is pretty cool, man. When everyone is kind of surprised at what you did, and me and you, we all knew the whole time. He said, Coach, that's the best part about it, that nobody really knew, and now everybody knows kind of, what we have brewing here at South Carolina, led by him at the Combine. A lot of guys, I thought, did pretty well at the Combine, but it was pretty cool letting the world know that, they kind of breed him a little different over here in the waters in South Carolina.
What do you remember about seeing Nick actually in this very facility when he came here for his high school camp and gets the offer from South Carolina, of course, eventually commits to you guys? I thought it was kind of interesting. He blew y'all away that day, and now you're seeing kind of the NFL world find out. But I remember being here that day and being like, this guy is built different, even as a high school kid. What do you remember seeing out of him when you offered him?
Yep, and that's obviously a story in itself, right? Obviously, it's a longer story, but we just remember him walking in the building, and I'm like, okay, 6'3", okay, not bad. 208, not bad. 39 vertical, not bad. 447, not bad. So just remember all that stuff, and I think a broad jump was almost 10.6 that day of a kid who we really weren't really recruiting at the time. And then just watching him go up and grab the football out the air and just how competitive he was that day. The Combine did remind me a little bit of that, so we knew he was going to show out the Combine, but he's just an unbelievable gifted athlete, God-given talent, and ultra edgy competitor on top of that.
Again, South Carolina defense coordinator Clayton White hanging out with us here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. We talk about these NFL teams getting set to draft guys here in a couple weeks, and you got to balance what's happening, obviously, on the field with production, as well as the athleticism you're seeing in these individual drills. From your standpoint, when it comes to recruiting guys, bring guys in either from the high school ranks or from the transfer portal ranks to South Carolina, what's that balance like for you between, obviously, the production you see on the field, but also the athleticism and how you feel like they can fit within your system as well?
Yes. In today's world, we have access to a lot of tape, a lot of different things that really help. So you can kind of piece together what you can get from a player. Like, you can type in height, weight, you can type in speed, if they hit a max speed at some point. So it's not easy to try to identify somebody in 10 days if you think they can fit your system, because the portal happens faster than recruiting. So you got to kind of do it right within 10 days, really within a day, to realize if he fits your system. So that makes it kind of hard. You're going to hit and miss. So I think we hit on a couple this year, and I think that's the most important piece, that you get the ones right.
let's talk about the guys that were in your room. I'm sure you're proud to watch Debo and Bam and D-Knight all come out here and participate today. Maybe a little bittersweet seeing them move on, but I know you got to be excited for those guys. What is an NFL team going to get if they draft, one of those three guys?
To me, definitely love seeing the guys. They all came in yesterday. I didn't see Debo yesterday. I saw Debo today. And D-Knight's been working out here, so it's been awesome. To me, they're all three different players. I think you get Debo Williams. Debo is a fan favorite. Debo is a hitter. Debo is a guy that can that's gonna make some noise when he's on the field. Bam Scott is an athletic guy, super athlete, who can really you can have a lot of fun with Bam in regards of moving him around and being versatile. And Demetrius Knight is kind of like your senior class president, your student body president, you know what I mean? And he kind of does a lot of different things. Very smart, grown man, professional. Those guys are really good players and great people.
We obviously know Debo's a very intense guy, and we talked about the other week. He didn't get the opportunity to go up there to the NFL Combine. He a little more fired up than usual today to go out there and prove some people wrong?
No, I mean, sometimes you have to just, stay in your lane and understand that, it's unfortunate that he didn't get a chance to go. I do think he definitely had a career to where he should have been able to at least be able to showcase his talents on that level. I'm pretty sure today, hope he's just focused and having fun. Today's a fun day. It's another opportunity to showcase your skill set, and I hope he's having fun and relaxed, to be honest with you.
I know tomorrow will be a fun, exciting day here, too, starting off spring ball. Lots of new faces, man. What is maybe your goal as you just sort of broadly look at the totality of the upcoming spring?
Yes, one, I can't believe it's year 5. So it goes by very fast. Very, very fortunate to be at a university in the program working for Shane Beamer, and it's been fun. I kind of have a feeling like I'm a college basketball coach, meaning it's almost like all my one-and-dones are left. I have a whole new roster, whole new linebacker room, so it kind of I'm a little bit younger.
Yeah,
I feel younger. I've been, so just because I have such a younger room, and especially on my side, and our guys, we told them yesterday, it's new faces, but the same standard, maybe a higher standard. So our guys last year showed us it's on tape on what to do in this defense and how we want it done, and I think it's going to be fun for real. It really is. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Dawn Staley always talked about just the difference, having all those young freshmen come in for her. There may be different people than your 23-year-old guys. Do you approach this group at all differently, or not really? Just, hey, y'all know where the standard is now. It's up to the newcomers to meet it.
That's the mindset that I was given to them yesterday, and it's going to be a process, so we know it's not going to happen overnight. So we got to do a great job as coaches as implementing our stuff. But like I said, our guys showed us last year how to do it. Now it's your turn to go out here and do it. But those guys are eager. They're all very smart, which I think that's a very key thing, that you got to have the football IQ or the willing to learn.
Well, and when you look at the first two levels of your defense, defensive line and linebacker is almost completely new in just about every single area. And when you look at a season ago, you brought in Demetrius Knight, you brought in, obviously, Kyle Kennard, you brought in DeAndre Jules out of the portal, guys that have played a lot of football and had varying degrees of production at their prior schools, where you're saying, okay, now we're bringing you in here to get you to the level of playing at South Carolina, playing in the SEC. This year, you bring in guys, at linebacker in Oronquo and Murphy. You bring in, Brown at defensive end. You bring in a guy like Dindy at defensive tackle, that a lot of those guys very high touted coming out of high school but haven't had a lot of production in their college careers so far, or given at their prior stops. How do you approach the development differently this offseason with those kind of guys that, again, a little more unproven than what you've had in the past?
The first thing when you say development, we got to make sure they understand just how we do things here at South Carolina, first and foremost. Make sure they understand the lay of the land. They understand how we, just how we operate. And I think the second thing is we start football school every January, so we intently, with some intents, we attack that moment just to get them on the same page as far as just our defensive playbook and how we talk and how we walk. And then tomorrow's practice. And then we're just really told those guys tomorrow to go out and fly around. Like, just fly around. Let me play football tomorrow. We don't have a ton of stuff on install 1. Just so we can kind of assess what we have and then go from there.
Everybody in the college football world now knows who Dylan Stewart is. Opposing offensive coordinators are probably going to have a plan for him week in, week out. What do you think maybe the next step is for Dylan's development this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Stewart is another one of the guys that's a rare player, a rare athlete. Dylan Stewart is just like every other player trying to get better at something every single day. I think with Dylan is just overall strength, just continue to get strong. He still is end of his freshman year, so he got to get, to continue developing the weight room. He's working very hard with that. Coach Day and his staff has gotten him stronger. Dylan, the main thing with him is to maintain his weight, that he's like to stay between 245 and 252 all the way through the season, stuff like that. But everything else, you can't say too much to Dylan Stewart. You have to really make sure you understand where he's aligned at, and the rest is, he's pretty good. So.
Again, you'll get football stuff rolling tomorrow with the on-field practices, but any names from what you've seen so far through the off-season workouts and getting to know these guys that are new to campus that stick out to you, or names that you think people need to know already?
Besides some of the obvious names, I think our guys are doing a good job. I think guys like Devontae Miles just have a really good off-season. He was a guy who just really wanted to come here so he can just flourish and see in this program and what we have to offer from a nutrition, from a development, just from a chance to grow his body. He's up to now probably 275, pushing to he'll be 285, 290 when we play. I think Dindy is doing a really good offseason. His numbers that we have a little Carolina combine we do too, so he did a really good job. And then our linebackers are doing good, Murphy and J.O. I'm going to go with J.O.
That's a little bit of our conversation with Clayton White from earlier on this week out at Pro Day. Again, appreciate him taking his time for doing that with me and Wes. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 2 of the early game on your Friday morning. Tyler Head flying solo here on the game.
It's lava time, baby. Man, this here might be better than raccoon on Thanksgiving, man. It's lava time, baby. It's lava time, baby. It is lava time, baby. Oh, yeah. It was lava time, baby.
Oh, welcome back into the early game. Tyler Head along with you here on your Friday. If you're not with us in hour number one, that was the voice of Xavier Legette doing a ad for Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, specifically Reese's Peanut Butter Cups with the chocolate lava in the bottom of it. They have this new brand of like big cups with like one's got lava, which is like chocolate fudge sauce kind of thing. One's got caramel. They got a peanut butter and jelly one that I've not yet tried yet, but looks pretty good. And a Legette, who, if I remember correctly, did say he wasn't a big fan of candy back around Halloween, is at least getting some dollars to endorse Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, which that is a dream come true for me. I'm a Reese's fanatic. I used to have a jar of Reese's in my bedroom that I would regularly have to refill because I ate them so much. And I don't know, it's cool to see Xavier Legette get to be a part of that. Some of you weighed in. We actually asked in the last hour, is it lava time? Which is what Legette was proclaiming there. It's lava time, baby. I know if you could understand him, of course. A lot of people say, hey, if X says it's lava time, it's lava time. According to Ray, doggone it, it's lava time. One here that really stands out to me, you know, we use the phrase a lot of times, you know, ball, where somebody will say something and it's like, oh, you know what you're talking about, right? Nameless texter weighs in and says, who cares about lava Reese's? It's always time for any Reese's, especially the Reese's egg. Listen, as a Reese's fanatic myself, the egg in the Reese's community is unmatched. You want to talk about the perfect ratio of peanut butter to chocolate? There's nothing better than the egg. The football they have in the fall and the pumpkins they have in the fall are close. Close. But something about, because on the egg, you got a little bit of a thinner outside wall with the chocolate. Like the actual Reese's peanut butter cup with the ridges is very thick on the outside. It's good and delicious and I love it, but a little too much chocolate compared to peanut butter, where the Reese's egg nails it perfectly. And again, you only get it at Easter time. So you got basically a month to get them before they're gone again. But the folks at Reese's, Hershey Corporation, whatever you want to call it, nailed the Reese's egg. And I look forward to it every single year. I got to go to the grocery store later on today, so I will probably pick up a couple while I'm there. But yes, Nameless Texter, you are 1,000% correct. The Reese's egg is the perfect Reese's. By the way, for any Reese's fans like myself, if you've not tried a Fast Break, which has some nougat in there, highly recommended. Also, the Reese's Outrageous Bar, which has little like it has caramel, it has little Reese's Pieces in there. Also very hard to beat as well. Look, Reese's never does anything wrong. You know what I mean? And these candy bar versions of the Reese's cup are pretty darn good as well. So highly recommend. And it's cool to see that Legette's getting in on this. By the way, Brad weighing in, Christmas tree is also good as well. But I think there's still a little bit too much chocolate on the outside. Again, I think the Reese's egg nails it that none of the other shaped Reese's quite compete with. But hey, if you enjoy the Reese's Christmas trees, that's fine too. That'll do it for hour number 2. Coming up next, hour number 3, our guy Mike Yuva going to hop on and hang out a little bit. We'll talk some women's basketball and what's going on up in his neck of the woods in Providence with the men's tournament. That's coming up next. It is the early game. Tyler Head, along with you on your Friday here on The Game. All right, another look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Things are starting to get a lot busier out there on the roadways as people are making their way in to work and to school. Have an accident at Highway 1 and Beltline Boulevard. Be cautious as you're going through that area. Another one at Kilbourne Road and Divine Street as well. For the most part, though, the interstate's looking okay for right now. Hopefully it does remain that way. Taking a look at your weather. Again, today's high going to be 64 with plenty of sunshine. Tomorrow, 75, sunny. 76 on Sunday, and rain returns on Monday as well. That's your traffic and weather on the early game. Eight o'clock, hour number 3. Welcome back in. It is, I almost said the extra point. It is the early game. Tyler Head along with you. Yes, flying solo. I am not Bill. I'm not Preston. I am not Jen. I'm me. And I'm running the ship here as one of those rare instances where all three of them are. I mean, Preston was here for the first hour and 15 minutes of the show, but Bill taking his 800th vacation day of the year. Jen's got some stuff going on that she had to be out for, and Preston had to head up the road to get some kids to school as he is a teacher, and that kind of stuff is certainly important as well. But Tyler Head holding down the fort here on your Friday morning, getting you set for hopefully another fun day of NCAA tournament action with the men's getting rolling yesterday, the women getting rolling a little bit later on this afternoon, and hopefully a fun back half of the month of March as we typically tend to get. Speaking of which, joining us from what's probably the most interesting site of all of them when it comes to the men's basketball tournament in Providence, Rhode Island, our guy Mike Yuva, who was just here earlier on this week, got back up the road. You told me you just got in at about 2 a.m. from the St. John's Omaha game. First of all, thank you for actually waking up and doing this. And how's day one of the tournament gone for you?
It was great. Obviously, we had to cover Calipari. We got to cover Pitino. As those who follow me on Twitter know, as a unbiased reporter from Providence, it was also my duty to share the news that McNeese State beat Clemson.
Yes.
I'm sure Tiger Nation is very happy to see one of their own win. So congratulations to Will Wade, as many Clemson alum. I'm sure very happy for him this morning. But no, it was quite the scene yesterday, Tyler. And it's going to be interesting to see how things play out later today with both Cal and Pitino talking. And, I was in the locker room afterwards talking to RJ Lewis, who had 22 points in that win for St. John's. And he knows, I mean, it's going to be quite the spectacle. 21st time that both Cal and Pitino have ever met before in a game.
I think this is the matchup we all wanted. Whether you're a fan of both those guys, whether you hate both those guys, you just want to see them go head-to-head as they've done so many times before. And that Kansas-Arkansas game probably was the best game of all of day number one. Omaha kept it pretty close with St. John's there at halftime. St. John's able to pull away in the second half. And when you get into these tournaments, you just want to see high-level coaches go head-to-head. And there's perhaps no two better coaches in this era of college basketball than Calipari, than Rick Pitino. I know Calipari the past couple years at Kentucky weren't all that great, and there's a reason why he's at Arkansas right now. But he seems to have a really good crew together that's playing its best basketball as of right now. And obviously they picked up a big win against Kansas yesterday. And on Saturday at about 2:40 up there in Providence, those two will go head-to-head once again.
Yeah, and I get it. Listen, there's probably a lot of people that aren't crazy about Cal for multiple reasons, right? Obviously, the fact that he's been in the SEC now for, oh, goodness, can't even count how many years it's been, because he was at Kentucky for quite some time.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's some people that aren't crazy about Pitino because of, some of the things that have took place over the years, or allegedly have took place over the years. So I say that, though, because, look, that aside, these are two college basketball titans. And for those who follow, especially Big East basketball, John Fanta, Fox Sports, we were talking last night, and it was one of those things, like when he said, he's like, if you're a college basketball fan, it's hard not to enjoy this, because there's not many coaches like this still left in the game, where when you think back to the 80s in particular, where the coaches were actually bigger than the players. And especially now in this NIL era, that's not the case. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing when the coaches are, but it certainly adds just a little bit more juice, because with players changing left and right, whether it be the transfer portal, whether it be just the fact that, these guys, they're one and done in some cases. At least when a coach is there, it brings a little bit extra juice. And certainly these two guys do just that.
I'm going to have to leverage your connection to John Fanta to get him on the show at some point. I'm a huge John Fanta fan. Nobody bleeds March Madness more than that guy.
He's been awesome. It really has been cool. It's one of those things, again, for those of you who don't know who John Fanta is, does a phenomenal job with Fox Sports, mainly does Big East basketball. But, man, he's electric. And seeing him in the editing room with everyone else, I mean, I tip my hat to him.
Yeah, you got to see him watch Red Panda perform at halftime.
I've seen Red Panda perform multiple times, but I have not seen John Fanta watching Red Panda.
I've seen the videos of it. He might actually enjoy that more than the basketball, for being honest, because he gets very excited when she throws like 5 bowls on top of her head.
Yeah, and anytime Red Panda has like an off night, I just don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it.
No, I have not seen her drop any personally, so I just refuse to believe it happens personally.
She's performed quite some time with South Carolina, whether it be the SEC Women's Tournament. That's where I've seen her a lot, especially out in Greenville. But I've also seen her perform at Clemson. But yeah, I think it's just an optical illusion. Maybe it's just my eyes playing tricks anytime I see her drop a play. But I'm not going to believe it.
Yeah, hey, look, everybody misses a shot every now and then. We'll forgive her for it. How is your bracket looking through day number 1?
Well, here's the thing. When you fill out a bracket, it's probably important to take a picture of it so you know how your picks are. You didn't do
the ESPN bracket challenge?
No, I did one. I did one at Hall's the other day, just a simple one. And of course, I didn't take a picture of it because my big thing is I do squares,
okay,
Super Bowl squares.
Yeah.
So of course, my numbers have not hit yet. 0-4 for anyone that wants to either see me do well or pull against me. Winning number 0, losing number 4. So I started doing that a couple of years ago. Tyler, that is more fun than doing the actual bracket. And the reason I say that is you get to the Sweet 16, your bracket's all busted. At least you're still looking at something like, man, I have a chance to get something out of this. So sure. I enjoy it. And you're yelling at 18 to 22-year-old kids to either make or miss a free throw in the final seconds.
I think we all have this false sense that we're going to be the first ones to ever fill out a perfect bracket. And then when you actually get it through there and you start having to decide like, 7-10 matchup, which way is this one going to go? And you realize there's a reason why nobody's ever filled out a perfect one, and there's like 8 billion different possibilities or scenarios and all that kind of stuff for what you could fill out. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I don't know, if you do, you deserve however much money they put on the line for it.
I'm trying to look it up in real time because I had this number down. It was like 9 quintillion.
Yeah, maybe it's more than a billion.
So it is roughly 9.2 quintillion is the one in 9.2 quintillion in getting the odds of getting a perfect bracket. So yeah, and I remember, if you remember back in the day, like ESPN would show like a cartoon example sometimes on some of these crazy statistics, and I think they stacked like the number of brackets. Like if you filled them all out, or like go back, go to the moon and then back. Like that's how many like brackets you'd have to fill out.
Yeah, it's like if every human that ever existed filled out 1,000 brackets every single day for 1,000,000 years, you still wouldn't get that number or something crazy like that. That's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about March Madness, right? I mean, you look at it is it's obviously, and I think now too, more than ever when we talk about this era, the transfer portal, there's so many guys. I mean, shoot, I cover Brian up here, and Brian's going to have their hands full certainly later today against Michigan State. But when you look at a team like that, there's a lot of guys who have played at bigger schools, whether it be Group 5 schools, power conferences. And I mean, Group 5 power conferences, what happens when you get in at 2 a.m. And the makeup of some of these teams, you have a more experienced group. Now, I'm sure to make this more local, South Carolina would like to find some of those experienced guys next year.
Sure.
But I think that's when you look at some of these mid-major schools, go through the roster, go through and look at, okay, did any of these guys play at a power conference school before they came there? Maybe they left for one reason or another. The coach left. Maybe they just weren't getting as much playing time. They want to be a little bit closer to home. Maybe there was some type of NIL incentive that enticed them to come. You have to be naive in some of these cases. But I think that's something, too, as to why, especially as we head into day 2 of the tournament, upsets shouldn't come as much of a surprise just because of the makeup instead of just looking at the logo of the school.
Yeah, and we'll get into the women's stuff here in just a minute. The talent discrepancy between the top and men's basketball and the bottom isn't all that far. Now, women's basketball still got a ways to go. There's a reason that South Carolina is probably going to dismantle Tennessee Tech by about 50 points, later on today. But in men's basketball, again, I know only 2 16-team seeds have ever won against number 1. But on a given day, if that lower seeded team, that mid-major team is on, like we saw yesterday with McNeese, which McNeese is a good team. They had a capability of beating Clemson regardless. But you see those kind of things happen. Yale beating Auburn last year. Like, you just go out there and have your best game, and Auburn is a little bit off, you can beat those kind of teams. And that's what makes this tournament so much fun. It's why we love it. Whether you're a college basketball nut or not, you can get into it for a couple weeks.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, you said South Carolina by 50, so you're taking them to cover the spread, because for those of you who haven't seen it, at least the last I checked last night, South Carolina women's basketball, they are favored to win today by 42.5.
I need to check what I sent to Shu. I think I have them winning by 38. I got 82-44, so I don't have them covering.
Now Don and the team are going to use this clip as motivation, saying that they're not believing in us the same way. 42.5 points. I'll say this, though. When you get into the tournament, you're trying to find that rhythm because, the women's team, they have, it feels like they don't play. Obviously the men's tournament, they get right back into it.
Sure.
Women, they have a couple more days, some extra time.
They basically had a week and a half off. Staley said it last week. I'm giving them 4 days off for spring break. Like, that's not happening on the men's side of things.
No, and I think that's why, and I talked to some of the players because my responsibility after the games, going in the locker room, helping out some of our sister stations, turning some content. And I asked St. John's, I'm like, look, I know you guys aren't going to make excuses, but kind of looked like your legs were a little shot in that first half against Omaha. There's no reason why South Carolina shouldn't come out ready to go. I think some might look at it, Tyler, and I know we'll get into South Carolina a little bit more in a little bit, but and you can, talk about this from a men's standpoint too, rest versus rust. I mean, how many times we talk about that when it comes to the NFL sometimes, especially with the way the old playoff format was. It's like, well, do I rest up my guys and then, I get an extra bye week or whatever the case may be. Sometimes that can work in your favor. Sometimes it can go against you. I think it's more than anything, just the feel of knowing your team.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have more basketball discussion as the early game rolls along. In the 8 o'clock hour, Mike Uva joining us from Providence, Rhode Island. Tyler Head back here in Columbia on your Friday on the Game. Florence, 100.3. All right, let's take another look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Things are getting a little bit busier out there on the roadways as more accidents to report now. One at 378 and Sunset Boulevard. Be careful as you're going through there. Still have the accident at Augusta Road and Beltline Boulevard as well. Same deal with the, my mouse will get over it, the accident at Kilbourne Road and Divine Street as well. Going to make you jealous with this one. Today's high, 64, plenty of sunshine. Tomorrow, 75 and sunny, 76 and sunny on Sunday to wrap up your weekend. Rain returns coming up on Monday. That's traffic and weather here on the early game. Welcome back in. It is the early game. Tyler Head, Mike Yuva hanging out with me here for the next 40 minutes or so as we talk a lot of hoops, and it is time for Message Board Geniuses, which I feel like this is the perfect opportunity, Mike, to poke more fun at Clemson. So I've gone to TigerNet, and I've found some reactions to them losing their opening round game against the 12-seed McNeese. This one from Tiger Chris L for loser, I guess, says, Brownwell doesn't deserve anything. Let him go. Let's see. More reactions. We have Xander 5000. Worked hard to get to this tournament. Brownwell got his extension. Even Clark Kellogg had us in the Final Four. And this is what is going down. Just doesn't add up, but it's obvious we have our head in the clouds and severely close to having our head on a platter. Let's see. More. I'm serious. This is from Green. I'm serious. Go ahead and flame away, then go blank yourself. And then Tiger 99 and 2000 said he sucked years ago and still does. What a joke. So they're taking it well in the upstate, Mike.
Yeah, and to provide what the mood was like, both in the locker room and leading up to going into the locker room, because of my unique access of covering for our sister station down in South Carolina. Graham Neff, the AD for Clemson, the look on his face afterwards was almost like he saw a ghost. And just the look on, and being around Clemson leading up to the game yesterday, there was certainly a confidence to them where, even talking to some of the media members, no one expected that. And just seeing everyone scramble to change their flights. So, because they're not going to be staying until Sunday now.
No.
Some of those media members. And I do like some of those media member guys because, you develop a relation. But the point being is, no one saw this one coming, Tyler, at least from Tigerville.
Well, and the optics leading into it, where you had Will Wade basically telling everyone, I'm going to take the NC State job and not shying away from that. And then Brownell gets his extension. So you're saying, okay, the coach that was being rumored to the Indiana job is staying at Clemson. The other coach we know is on his way out as soon as they get eliminated. I was going to pick McNeese to upset them before all that happened, but now I'm like, okay, that's clearly going to be a distraction, right? Clearly not. And I listened to some of, Will Wade's presser after the game. He seems to be on the same page with all the players. They know what's up. The AD was fine with it. Like, they may be more locked in than ever now.
Well, and as we all know, when stuff like that comes out, it's okay. Were these conversations, did they take place beforehand the way that he's really leading it on to be? Because he said, we talked about it going back to over the weekend, and they know where I'm coming from, and I'm paraphrasing. They know where I'm coming from. I know where they're coming from, transfer portal stuff, jobs, all this and that. They can read BS, all that kind of stuff. And again, that's kind of what he said on Wednesday. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but based on how they played, this looked exactly like a team that had nothing to lose. Now, having said that, there's a couple things that took place in that game, and Clemson talked about it afterwards. McNeese State threw a defense at them, a defensive look that they weren't prepared for, number one. Number two, even in the middle of plays, when picks were being thrown and Clemson players were moving to new spots after throwing the pick, they were changing their defense mid-play as well. So that's not making excuses. That just goes to show, like, McNeese State, like, hey, they had a game plan, and they were locked in, and they executed that. Clemson had a lot of open looks, but because of just that mentality of, like, wait a minute, what are they throwing at us? They went, 1 for 15 behind the arc in the first half and 10 turnovers. So, I mean, look, if Clemson just plays a minute better in the first half, they probably win that game because of how they played down the stretch, but it was obviously too little too late.
Yeah, no, they definitely played a much better second half. And if that game had 3 or 4 more minutes, they probably end up winning that game. What they closed up, they're down 15-17 with about 7 or so minutes to go and ended up making a tight game at the very end. So you give them credit for that, obviously. But McNeese playing as well as they did in the first half ended up being the difference there. And again, Will Wade going to continue to be the McNeese coach as long as they continue to win, however far that is. And again, Clemson back to the drawing board on what many thought, again, referencing that person that said Clark Kellogg had them in their Final Four. A lot of people did. I think Jay or Elijah, one of them, had Clemson going pretty deep, and that's probably going to be a bracket buster for a lot of people.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure there's some Gamecock fans that naturally picked McNeese State, but I tend to agree with you because, look, as good as the SEC was this year, the ACC, at least the teams that performed well at the top, Duke's obviously going to get a lot of praise. What Louisville did yesterday, though, was kind of, interesting to see. So I say this because, look, we do this with college football. I don't get so caught up in how did the SEC perform in this bowl game? How did the SEC perform in the NCAA tournament versus the ACC? That's going to happen naturally. But I don't get so caught up with it because you have matchups like this where you have an experienced coach and he's able to have his mid-major school ready to go. In the way they respond, it's not always the same as just saying, all right, they're playing tick-tock tech. Yeah. They're just happy to be here. That's great. They gave them a little NCAA tournament patch for their jersey. No, like McNeese State, they were ready to go. And just from a matchup standpoint, we mentioned the alum part. I mean, it doesn't hurt because I'm sure Will Wade, if there's any school that he's watching probably a little bit closer than any other school, it's probably Clemson.
Sure.
So he probably knew that team very well heading into that. It was just a perfect matchup and certainly didn't hurt that the Tigers shot so poorly in the first half.
Yeah, and look, he's going to have an opportunity to go head-to-head with Brad Brownell pretty much every single year now because he's going to be joining him in the ACC when he does inevitably take the NC State job whenever that does end up happening. But again, and look, a lot of those players from McNeese State probably going to follow him either to NC State or go elsewhere and play for powerful schools themselves because of how good of a team that is. So there's
what does that say, Tyler?
Yeah.
Your point, they have players with that type of caliber.
They do. And again, we're in this era now where, if a coach leaves, it's no longer like, oh, no, I'm stuck here for another 2 years with a guy that I didn't want to be playing for or the guy that recruited me is now gone. You have the option to go somewhere else. So, again, and maybe we were naive to think it was going to be a distraction, but clearly it's not. And McNeese State seems more locked in than ever.
Yeah. And again, I just think this could have gone one or two ways, right? And I think a lot of us, myself included, expected them to come out and not really have any fight, or they were going to come out, have a little fight early on. It's just like, all right. And then they were just going to run out of gas, but that wasn't the case. They were locked in. They were committed to the defensive scheme that they threw at them. And Clemson looked like they saw ghosts out there in that first half.
Play more basketball discussion, maybe even get some spring football in there as well as practice got rolling a little bit earlier on this week. Quick reminder tonight, baseball back in action, taking on Arkansas on the road in Fayetteville. 7:15 pregame for a 7:30 first pitch as the Gamecocks look for their first SEC Series victory of the season. 3 o'clock first pitch tomorrow, and then 3 o'clock as well coming up on Sunday. All those games right here on 107.5 The Game. It is the early game. Tyler Head joined by Mike Uva up the road in Providence here on your Friday on The Game. And another look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Still the same stuff going out there on the roadways as of right now. Accident out at Augusta Road and Beltline Boulevard, as well as that same accident from earlier at 378 and Sunset Boulevard as well. A couple new things happening a little bit farther outside of town. One at Augusta Road and I-20 as well, so be careful as you're heading out that way. Again, high today going to be 64 degrees, lots of sunshine. Same with sunshine tomorrow and Sunday, highs of 75 and 76, respectively. That's your traffic and weather on the early game. And welcome back in. It is the early game. Tyler Head, Mike Yuba hanging out with me here from Providence, Rhode Island, after being on site for a lot of great action in the first round of the NCAA men's tournament. He's got his cup of coffee to keep him awake for the next couple minutes as we navigate through and transition over to women's basketball a little bit, because tournament gets rolling proper today for the women as South Carolina taking on Tennessee Tech, the 16 seed, coming up this afternoon, 4 o'clock, which you can listen to on our sister station, I believe, 98.5 WOMG. And, of course, the game's right down the street from us here at Colonial Life Arena. And, I listened to Dawn's presser yesterday, and as with any coach, he's going to give her props, but we know what the deal is. This is a team that South Carolina should run through pretty handily, and then you'll wait to either play Indiana or Utah coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, Tyler, over the years from covering this team, what I want to see from this team, I mean, obviously outside of the obvious, which is a win, it's not necessarily how much they beat them by, but I just want them to play clean, right? I mean, it sounds cliche to say, but I want them to do just the little things right. I want them to be able to protect the basketball. I want them to be able to finish in the paint. Things that when you look back over the last couple of years, whether it be some of the teams that Dawn has led to national titles or teams that have made it far, you kind of get a sense early on how things are going to go based on those things. Again, the turnovers, the points in the paint, just finishing your layup. So I just want to see them do that because, as you mentioned earlier, this team, they have had some extra time off just based on how the women's tournament is in comparison to the men's. I mean, that's why, as you said, Don gave this team 4 days off. So from a mental standpoint, from a maturity standpoint, yes, they are young in some areas, but you hope that maturity factor, and I'm sure Don would say the same thing, for those who are freshmen, well, now they're more like sophomores. If you're a sophomore, you're more like a junior because as you head into this stretch, it is, as cliche to say, it is a new season, and you need these players to be mentally locked in more now than ever.
And, taking on a team like Tennessee Tech, which credit to them, they obviously did what they needed to earn their way into the tournament, but Carolina can go out there and play like their C- game and still probably win this game pretty comfortably. But as you get deeper into the tournament, whether it be North Carolina, Duke, when you get into Elite Eights and Final Fours taking on Texas, obviously UCLA and Southern Cal on the other side, you have to bring your A game against all those teams. You've obviously taken on Texas and UCLA and lost to each of those teams at some point this season as well. Obviously avenged that Texas loss by beating them twice, most recently at the SEC Women's Tournament. But we've seen this team not show up and not be its best a couple of different times this year. Sometimes they won, but other times they were lost, particularly when they fell to UConn by 29 points a couple weeks ago. And in the back of your mind, this is kind of the first time, at least since I've been here covering this team, that I had some doubts going into the tournament. Not that they can't go out there and win it all, because they absolutely can and run the table and beat everybody by 30 points. But again, we've seen this team not be its best at times this year. And if they went out there and lost in an Elite Eight or a Final Four, I wouldn't say I'd be shocked by it. You know what I mean?
And what's interesting is the last couple of days I've been asked about the women's team up here in Providence. And granted, I'm sure there's some fatigue for those who aren't fans of the Gamecocks, just like there is with any sport, right? I mean, you look at football with the Kansas City Chiefs, people have fatigue with them. It just happens, right? Patriots for so many years. What we saw with Golden State, that's just part of sports. But I think there's a lot of people who do follow the sport up here. And they're looking at it as saying like, all right, hey, look, South Carolina, they're going to have to be at their best. They've been shaky, to your point, at times this season. Yes, they are the most battle-tested team of them all because of the strength of schedule, and that has been the case over the last couple of years. And credit to Don Staley and this program for going out there and always wanting to play the best. But the field, certainly, when you look at some of the teams who could be, and we expect to see towards the end of it all, whether it be the final, the Elite Eight or the Final Four, there's some good teams. And, some of these teams have had South Carolina's number. That's not to say that USC, if God forbid they're in a situation to, play UCLA again, they can't go out there and beat them. But, yeah, I think the problem is this. Where their flaws are, they've been a little bit more prominent maybe than years past. But that's not to say that they can't, turn that light switch on and be able to play the type of basketball that we know that they're capable of. It's just when they have struggled, it has been really bad. But you just hope that you're able, again, do the little things right, build off of that confidence, because UCLA, Southern Cal, some of these top seeds in this tournament, guess what? They're going to be in the same boat too. They're going to be going out there playing TikTok Tech, and they're going to be in the same situation where it's just like, all right, do they sleepwalk in some of these earlier matchups?
What conference is TikTok Tech in?
I don't know. I mean, that's just been a phrase. I remember my dad used to say it back in the day when he was a head coach, and it's been one of those things now with TikTok actually being an app. I think some people think I get it from that. I may have spelled it differently over the years, but I remember using it. Yeah, TikTok Tech.
See, I would have thought it would have been from the app and saying, that's a team that's famous for doing dances or something like that, which you have no problem running over them.
Yeah, it comes from the old clock, Yeah. I don't know how many people have the old school big old clocks, the grandfather clock. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. The very loud ones.
Oh yeah, TikTok Tech.
Still that merch. I mean, you got on the Uva Biscuit hoodie right now. You can sell TikTok Tech merch.
Oh, I feel like I would get sued or get hit with cease and desist from the app.
Well,
instantly.
If you spell it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worth a shot.
Mean, we'll see. We will throw that in the suggestion box, and if it goes anywhere, we will give you a % of that, Tyler. How about that?
See, what we need to do, because you say it, we need to work it into the lexicon of all of us here. When we're my thing when I'm talking about like a small school or a mid-major team, I'd go with something like Southwest Northwest Central State University of Connecticut Community College. You know what I mean? Something ridiculous like that. But if I start saying TikTok Tech 2, I think it'll catch on a little bit more.
The other school that my dad would say was Salami State.
Okay, I like that.
That's another one. So I wish I could think of all the ones that he has said over the years.
Which it's
TikTok
funny
Tech
because there's a Salisbury State. I think it's in Pennsylvania, if I'm thinking correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Dan Quinn actually went to school. So like a school named after a form of meat is actually not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, I saw recently that there's and is the case with a lot of these minor league baseball teams, like the spicy meatballs are coming to town.
Okay.
I got to find out what city it is, but
spicy meatballs.
Yeah, a college, their mascot just being like, a big old piece of salami. Now, granted, there's some ugly mascots out there. There's some ugly mascots, but not just ugly, just ridiculous mascots. The Stanford tree. Like, I just, there's some mascots that I do appreciate. I got to see the Kansas Jayhawk for the first time. Our buddy Jack Veltri, who loves mascots, which is the complete opposite from our good friend Colin Taylor, who is petrified. He cannot be near a mascot.
I was not aware Colin did not like mascots.
Colin's wife, Michaela, I'll never forget this. When they got married, she brought out Cocky. And I think I have the video from the dance floor, and you can see, and granted, I'm about 50 feet, maybe 80 feet away, and you can just see Colin voicing to Michaela, like, I don't like this, something along the lines of that. And again, this has been, a couple of years, but it is probably something along those lines. So I remember talking to someone at USC who may have been involved with Cockies or whatever and they let the other Cockies know that Colin wasn't a fan of mascots.
Yeah.
So anytime for a period of time down the stretch, when Colin would be covering baseball games or whatever, these cockies would be, all right, there's only one cocky, excuse me. There's only one, as we all know.
Yes.
You know, there's only one. You know, for any little kids that may be listening going to school, there's only one cocky. But cocky would go up and they would seek out Colin, whether it be up in the press box, whether it be walking to the stadium. And Colin would be texting me like, I hate you. So, Colin, not a fan of mascots.
That's phenomenal. When I was at Georgia, and this is still the case today, are you familiar with Spike, the big inflatable mascot they have at the basketball games?
Yes.
He is universally hated by everyone. Nobody likes Spike. And I worked with a girl that was like terrified of him. And he is kind of unsettling and off-putting compared to like, hairy dog or something like that. But yeah, mascots they're unique. We were talking about Xavier's big blob yesterday. Of course, played in against Texas. And I said he looks like a combination of like Grover, the Cookie Monster, and Elmo from Sesame Street.
I'll tell you, my favorite one was last year. I know we don't have probably fond memories because of how the game went itself, but the Oregon Duck.
Yes, Puddles.
AKA, I guess. So I guess they don't call him Puddles anymore.
They don't.
I mean, he's always gonna be called Puddles to me.
That's what I thought his name was.
That's what I thought too. But and then not to get too sidetracked here talking about mascots, but of course, Jack, again, he is obsessed with mascots. He's obsessed with he goes to
let's save the Jack story for the other side real quick. I feel like it's going to take a minute to explain. We'll come back and wrap up today's edition of the early game. Tyler Head and Mike Yuba on your Friday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the early game. I'm not Bill. I'm not Preston, and I'm not Jen. I'm Tyler. Mike Yuba hanging out with me up the road in Providence as we're holding down the fort while everybody else is out doing other things. Again, Bill takes 8,000 vacation days. Jen did have a legitimate reason to not be here, and Preston's taking some kids to school. So we'll allow it. Appreciate Mike hanging out with me for this hour here. And again, you've already gone through one cup of coffee, I'm sure. And we were enjoying telling embarrassing mascot stories in the last segment, and you had one reserved for Jack that I will let you finish.
Yeah, so Jack filled out, again, it's one of those things. It's like fantasy football, March Madness, like, oh, this is who I have, going to the Final Four. I don't care who's in your Final Four. I don't care who you're picking. I really don't. But to make it even that much more of I don't care, respectfully, Jack, in case you're listening, Jack sent me his Final Four picks for his mascot bracket. And it was one of those, like, what are you doing moments. Thank you, Jack, for sending me that. I couldn't live without knowing that you have Zippy winning it all from Akron. So I really appreciate that.
It's a unique mascot. I'll give him that. What is the thing you least like to hear about? Someone's bracket or someone's fantasy football team?
Fantasy football. Because at least with March Madness and brackets, that's only going to be for a couple weeks.
True.
And usually the buzz will die down probably after the first weekend, once you get past, the second round. Fantasy football, this guy got hurt. Oh, I'm in, this many leagues. It's just like, and how many brackets, right? I know it's a personal preference. Just fill out friggin' one.
Yeah.
Don't do this. And I love my guy, Peter Burns. Great guy. Does a great job at the SEC Network talking about, use, your head for one, your heart for one. It's just like, no. Just do one. Just do one. You want to do a bunch of them, have that. Just like the people, I do, 4 fantasy football leagues. It's just like, spare me.
I've done 2 fantasy football leagues concurrently, and I felt like I was playing against myself more often than not. Like, okay, I need this receiver to do well, but he's going up against my defense in the other league. So how's this going to balance out? So I'm like, yeah. After I did that 1 year, I was like, no, just one league for me.
And I'm really big with like the survivor leagues with football. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you pick a team each week, straight up, no spreads. And if you win, you advance the next week. If you lose, you're eliminated. You're done. You could be done after week 1. But once you advance to the next week, you can't use that team again. I somehow, my furthest one I've ever made it to the NFC Championship. I mean, usually you're done by like week 13, 14.
Sure.
Of course, my dumb self, I picked against Tom Brady. Ooh. And, I picked the Packers to win. And that was the year that Brady and the Buccaneers beat the Packers, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I got nothing. I didn't even get a pat on the back or a thanks for playing.
Well, even though you lost, Tommy still won, so.
I was happy for my man, Touchdown Tommy. So many good memories as a kid in New England. Now it's all downhill, and now I know what it's like to feel like a Falcons fan. And
yeah, welcome to the rest of the world,
You're a Falcons fan, right?
I am, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. It hasn't felt the same since that February day back in 2017.
I'm not going to make any jokes. That was painful for you.
Listen, it gets brought up enough on random broadcast. If any game that gets 28-3, somebody's going to say something about it.
Grew up a Patriots fan, but at the same time too, our good buddy Pat DeMarco was on that team, and I have a lot of respect. I'm not going to make any of those jokes.
Yeah, Pat was one of my favorite ones, and we had a session one day on this show, kind of going through the heartbreak that game was. So,
Mike, was probably therapeutic.
It certainly was. Mike, appreciate your time, man, and we'll have you back on before too long. Don't worry.
All right, hang in there, Tyler. You got this, buddy.
I'll try. Thanks so much, man. Mike Yuba, up the road in Providence, Rhode Island, hanging out, watching all the great basketball in the first round of the NCAA men's tournament. That'll do it for the early game. Coming up next, it's the extra point with, hey, guess what? Myself as well, here on The Game.